Savior, I come, I quiet my soul. Remember, redemption's here, where your blood was spilled for my ransom, and everything I once did, I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out, and bring me to my knees. Lord, I lay me down and rid me of myself. I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross. You were as I tempted and tried. Your words became flesh, bore my sin and death. Now you're risen, and everything I once did, I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out, and bring me to my knees. Lord, I lay me down and rid me of myself. I belong to you. Oh, lead me to your love, to your to your lead me to your lead me to the cross where your love poured out, and bring me to my knees. Lord, I lay me down and rid me of myself. I belong to you. Oh, lead me to your love, to your love, to your love, lead me to your to the cross where your love poured out, and bring me to my knees. Lord, I lay me down and rid me of myself. I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross.
One thing that I always thought was funny is that no matter how much I tried to get all my personal belongings and all the things that I wanted in this world, no matter how much I tried, it never ever satisfied me. It satisfied me for a time. So I was real happy. My dad always explains that he wanted this, some things for so long, and he finally got them, and then after he used them, they just sat in the garage for I don't know how long. So my point is that the stuff here on earth is worthless. You can collect all this stuff to look good for other people, but it's worthless. Because their opinion on how you're going to get to heaven doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if somebody thinks I'm a good person. It only matters if God says that I'm his child. And then okay, this next song is called Christ is Enough. And if you think Christ is enough in your life, sing this with me. Christ is my reward and all of my devotion. Now there's nothing in this world that could ever satisfy. Through every trial, my soul will sing, no turning back. I've been set free. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Christ, my all in all, the joy of my salvation. And this hope will never fail, 'cause heaven is our home. Through every storm, my soul will sing, Jesus is here. To God be the glory. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. The cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back. No turning back. A cross before me, the world behind me. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. Sing together. Christ is enough for me. Christ is enough for me. Everything I need is in you. Everything I need. Christ is enough for me. Christ no turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back, no turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back, no turning back. I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back, no turning back. I hope that's your decision this morning, is to follow Christ, because we know he's the only way. And if you don't, you're not listening. Let's play this song together.
This is my desire to honor you, Lord, with all my heart. I worship you.
Sing together.
Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. Lord, have your way in me. This is my desire to honor you, Lord, with all my heart. I worship you. Lord, I have within me. I give you praise. All that I adore is in you. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. Lord, have your way in me. Lord, I give you my heart, I give you my soul. I live for you alone. Every breath that I take, every moment I'm awake. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way. Lord, have your way in me.
Are you ready for the new year? It's here. I don't know about you, but it seems like the last few years, haven't they seemed like a roller coaster ride?
We've had all of these sicknesses. We've had all of this stuff go on. We get to see the tragedies all over. And it just seems like I'm like sick of it. And I want a fresh start. I want something new. You know, it seems like every day I look at a portion of the news, someone died. We look at last night, another person dies. We get to see that, and it's crazy that we get to see so much death. But hopefully in this year, as we begin, there's going to be something new. We won't have to endure some of these things that we're seeing. But as I thought about this year, and I think about it often, is we make a lot of resolutions for the year, right? We're going to do this or that, at least till February, right? We're gung-ho to go to the gym, and then after a while, it's like, oh, the bear claw sounds better to me. You know what I mean? Or the burrito. But many of us even plan to get fit. Hey, I'm going back to the gym. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to stay away from sugar. I'm going to stay away from carbs. We have different work goals for each one of us. Maybe some is even reading our Bibles more, improving our parenting skills, enriching our marriages. There's a lot of different goals we put in, even those trying to wean themselves off of TikTok. So you can get lost in the TikTok black hole, or like the YouTube hole. You just get in and you're just lost. A couple hours have went by and you're stuck on that. Have you ever been there? I've been there, so I'm not going to lie to you. But then there's this one thing. I'm going to stay real quiet. It's exercising. Just the thought of it for some of us makes us tremble. Oh my gosh, exercising? Why can't I just take a pill and watch it just melt off? You know what I mean? Oh, we just want one of those pills? I want one of those pills. What is what is it? Slim Slows? What are they called? Slim Slows? Oh, Slim Fast. No, Slim Slow, I think is what it's called. Because it really doesn't work the way that it's supposed to. But it's about getting up our heart rate. And I thought, I don't have to exercise. I can just drive around town. And the drivers in New Mexico, that gets my heart rate up. Watching news, the same thing, right? But as we look at the scripture, Paul tells us something different of what we're supposed to be doing. He tells Timothy in chapter 4, verses 8, he tells him this: physical training is good, but training for godliness is much better. Look at what it promises. It promises benefits in this life and the life to come. So we get to see training for godliness is much better. It helps us here, and it's going to help us when we close our eyes and go to heaven. That's what it's preparing us for. I won't discount being in good shape. Being fit is good for us. It is good, healthy for us. But training in godliness is even much better than that. We're supposed to train ourselves to be godly. I wish it just came and I was godly and I felt like reading my Bible. I felt like coming to church, but it's a process that we go through. But we are to pursue godliness. This word pursue is indicating unrelenting, persevering effort. Think about that. When we're pursuing godliness, it's unrelenting and persevering effort. I had to think, am I pursuing godliness like I should be? And sadly enough, it was no. It was no, because I think, what takes priority in my life? What am I always thinking about? What do I always focus on? And that's why I had to think, do I really pursue God the way I think that I do? Probably not. What godliness does for us, it teaches us to say no to ungodliness and to worldly passions and to live self-controlled, upright lives. That's what it helps us. When we're living within the confines of what God has shared with us, then we start to make better decisions. Anybody ever made a bad decision? You go back and you kick yourself over and over and over? There's some of us still dealing with those things. We still have a branch in our hand and we whack ourselves every time we think about it. I know I do the same thing sometimes. But I had to ask myself, how will I train this year for godliness? What exercise must I perform to train in this godliness? How do I get this spiritual muscle? How do we bulk up? I think we're going to start bench pressing our Bibles, those big Bibles, and curling them. That's not how we do it. We start exercising our faith. It's trusting in the things of the Lord. He set his promises before us. Now, are we going to start trusting in them? Because what he does is we give it to God, and if God doesn't do it in our time, we go back to saying, I'm going to fix it. God is not real, and that's what many people do. They start doing it on their own. But it's about one's trust. Are we walking in his ways or in our ways? But if we continue to walk in our ways, we continue to go in a circle, and we never solve many problems. The scripture says that we must exercise our faith. We talk about it, but what does it look like? So now in our Bibles, in Hebrews 12, it begins with this word, therefore. It's kind of a weird thing that you start this book in, therefore. But as we we must ask what it's there for. So most of us know, and maybe you do not know, that the Bible was written, didn't have chapter and verses like what we have now. That was only done in the 1500s. They put a chapter and a verse so you and I knew where to go. So in essence, this was just a long letter. And so, but they give us, so I think that this portion of 12 should have been in 11, should have been. So to our knowledge here, he's talking about this, therefore, about chapter 11. And he's talking about the people of the Hall of Faith. These people that had went before us, these like people that had endured many things before and did miraculous things. They were done through faith. They hung on to their faith. So if you have your Bibles, I'm going to have you turn back one chapter to chapter 11. And I'm going to give us a little bit of context to see, and that's going to start in verse 33. Remember who he's talking about. He's talking about these people in the Hall of Faith, these people that went before us, these forefathers. And it says through, verse 33, who through faith conquered kingdoms. They conquered kingdoms, enforced justice, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the power of the fire, escaped the edge of the sword, were made strong out of weakness, became mighty in war, put foreign armies to flight. Women received back their dead by the resurrection. Some were tortured, refusing to accept the release that they might rise again to a better life. Others suffered mocking and flogging and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned. They were sawn in two. They were killed with a sword. They went about the skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in the deserts and mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. All these things, though commanded through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us, they should not be made perfect. So what this Hebrew author is saying is this Christian walk, this thing that you and I believe in, it's not a short run. It's a marathon. It's a long distance thing that we're on. People that run marathons, and I don't know if you've ever ran a marathon, they don't just put on running shoes and say, hey, I'm a professional runner, I'm going to do a 20K run, right? I don't think we do that. We have to train and gain endurance. How long did it take you to gain endurance to eat 2 burritos? You didn't just eat 2 burritos, you started off with 1. After a while, what happens? Your panza stretches, then you have 2. And that's what happens is we gain, that's a sorry thing, but we have to gain endurance in the things that we do. Like when we hunt, when we fish, we get better at it if we continue on. We start learning how to use different flies. We learn different things, different techniques. That's how we gain those things. So that's how we're supposed to gain it, is endurance. What it's talking about here in Hebrews 11 is talking about those people that held fast despite their circumstances. They had it hard like we did, and even worse. They endured pain, suffering, torture. They were tortured for their faith. And I believe, like Sam and I were talking about that, Iran, China, North Korea, all these are ramping up them people that if they find you, they kill you on the spot. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ. Can you imagine that here It'd be amazing, it'd be crazy, but it's coming because we get to see that Christianity is starting to take a back seat in our country. But they died without seeing God's earthly fulfillment of these promises. We got a promise of Christ and the cross, and it is coming back. He's coming back for us. We're holding on to that promise. They didn't get to see even the fulfillment of the Messiah, some of these people. But it's convicting because the ultimate reward promised to believers has not yet been delivered. You know, God conquered sin and death, but evil still exists, suffering still exists. So you and I must hold on to what we're seeing, and we'll see it get worse as the scriptures say it, and I believe it, and you and I have seen it. I want him to come back already. I'm ready to be done with this place. People think we're going to be in heaven riding on clouds, and that's shooting arrows at different things. No, we're going to have a regular life. We're going to have things to do. But without pain, without suffering, without different things that we think that we need. In 2 Peter 3:9, Peter tells us that the Lord isn't really being slow about his promise, as some people think. No, he's being patient for your sake. He does not want anyone to be destroyed, but wants everyone to repent. Everybody freaks out with this word repent. What does repent mean? Is it changing those ways that we once lived? Because the way that I used to live, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be dead. You know, sadly enough, there was one point in my life, and maybe some of you have, dealt drugs early on in my life. And I just stop and I think, man, what's the retirement plan of a drug dealer? Either you're in prison or you're 6 feet under. By the grace of God, God gave me another chance. I said, I don't want that for you. I'll give you happiness if you follow me. And I've experienced that happiness more than any of that stuff could ever offer me. Getting high for a high was just for a little time. I could never get enough. And then I felt like stupid afterwards. So looking back at those people that went before us, they give us inspiration and motivation to say we can do it. We can see through their dedication and their blood, sweat, and tears that they were able to do it. These witnesses gave evidence that this run that you and I are on can be done. They made it, and so can we. And regardless of what happens, and there's going to be great rewards with it. We're always looking for evidence. Does this Christianity work? I always question that. We want to see evidence, right? We want to see something happens. What we get to see is many times we get to see people that have changed it. We get to see their past and then get to see their future and say, wow, what happened to them? God changed them. It's like a Rubik's Cube. I remember Dominic used to do them like in 3 seconds, have this really good old crazy thing. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way you can put that together and make it all sides. 3 seconds he could do it. I think it was something like that, or even quicker. So do this quick, and it was done. I wanted to see evidence that it could be done, and I still couldn't do it. What a mess. My brain doesn't work that way. So let's look at our passage together. In Hebrews 12. We only have 3 whopping verses this morning. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin that clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Looking to Jesus, the founder and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. So as we look back at verse 1, it says, therefore, since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, these examples that went before us, Look at the wording says, what it says. Let us also lay aside, move out the way, every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Many of us start races, but do we finish them? How many this morning you've started a project and never finished it? It's in your garage somewhere. There's many of us that start something, but we never finish it. We had this dream of, I'm going to do these nice carvings, and I got all my whittling tools, and they're still sitting in the garage. I had great ambitions to do it, but I didn't do it. It's one thing to start something, but it's another thing to finish. With all these that went before us watching us, wouldn't you want them to say, hey, you can do this. You can do this. If they were cheering for us, what do you think they could be saying? If we're running this like Boston Marathon and they're on both sides, what these saints of old, let's say Moses was there, Elijah was there, these people of old, Paul the Apostle, what would they be telling us if we were along that road? First would be don't get distracted. Don't get weary. Just go a little further. Quit looking back. You can do it. You're going to make it. Keep on going. I think that's what sometimes we get hampered with. Are we going to make it through my circumstance? I don't even see tomorrow. You don't understand what I'm dealing with. God will give you the strength to carry on yet one more day. Yesterday, you may have been feeling that way, and you're here today. That God gave you another day. That passage continues to tell us to lay aside every weight. Have you ever ran with unnecessary clothing? Ever done that? Or unnecessary shoes? I find myself running in my Crocs sometimes, and it's not pretty. How many have ever ran a marathon? Anybody in here ran a marathon? You guys run to the hilera, right? More like it. Run to the fridge. Sorry. But have you ever ran a marathon in a tuxedo? What about in high heels, ladies? What about running in a trench coat? Well, check out this one. What if you ran a marathon in skinny jeans? Oh my gosh. That's one of those things that you can't unsee. What the author is saying is these things may be a hindrance to you, those things. They weigh you down spiritually. And what is he talking about here? It could be a bad friendship, an association with different people, an event, a place, habits, entertainment that take your eyes off of him and lead you to something else. Those things, he says, is a hindrance to you. They're not bad, but the more you put on those things, the less it becomes on him. If you read the rest of this chapter, it talks about discipline. Sometimes he'll come in and say, well, you want to focus on that? I'm going to discipline you now to bring you back. And we don't like the discipline part. And that's why it's best to keep our eyes focused on him first. They also knew that this sin would also weigh us down to the point of being sluggish, not running to want to run any longer. Sin is a very heavy thing in our lives. I know sometimes I'm hunting, it reminds me of my backpack sometimes. It's like, man, this thing is so stinking heavy. At these big hills, when I have to go up a hill, I'm like, I don't even want to go. I want to leave my backpack there. It's so much easier. But that's what sin does. It weighs us down. What sin does also is it obliterates families, relationships, health, nations, hearts. But what is sin? Sin is something you know is wrong and you continue to do it anyways. Because all of us here, I'm sorry to say, but we're all sinners. We all blow it. But when we know it's wrong and we continue to do it, that's what's worse. That's habitual sin. That's you've created a habit of doing it. That's where you think those things are more important than other things. Some people walk away there from their families because of that thing it's more important to them. You know what sin reminds me of? Has anybody ever owned a Venus flytrap? They're the coolest thing. They're the coolest thing. And what they do is they have this open little thing with these little barbs. They don't look like much to us, you know what I mean? But to a little fly, a mosca, it's a big old monster. What it does is it emits this fruit smell. And it smells good. And then once that fly lands inside, that plant closes and it snaps it shut hard, making it impossible for that insect to come out of there. Isn't that so much like sin? When it gets you that hard, you can't come out of it? That's what it does. It starts to eat you like the Venus flytrap. I guess the question is for us this morning is, what's slowing us down right now? Now as we're coming into this new year, what's hampering us from moving forward? What stops us from coming to church? What stops us from reading our Bible? We have to evaluate those things. What's most important? What do I focus on more? And I wish I could just drop everything. When I first started my walk with the Lord, that everything, I would just throw everything away and I'm going to be holy. No, it took little pieces at a time. God takes us slow. And he shows us these different things. This is in your way right now. Why don't you get rid of that? And I'll show you something better. As I mentioned, it could be quite simple. Just our priorities, a change of our priorities. Sometimes we're too busy. We work too much. We play too hard. What a big thing is relationships. Hooking up with the wrong people. We know some of them people that we know hanging around with them, they're not good. I often tell my son, I tell him, when I was growing up, I used to hang around with some friend, and he just didn't like cops at all. He hated them. So one time we got pulled over, and he kept mouthing off, and he got one ticket, and then he went to another ticket, then to another ticket. I'm like, keep your mouth shut. I had to finally stop hanging with him because I'm like, I'm going to be in the midst of that mess that he likes. I don't want to be caught up in that. Sometimes our hobbies take us away. As I mentioned before, I used to hunt all the time, and church wasn't that important to me. But in the process, I was losing my family too. I was losing what was most important to me. There's this big one also, laziness. Most of us know what we need to do, but are unwilling to do it. You know that here, standing up here this morning, I want to be jacked. You know, it's a new term, jacked, ripped, swole. I really do. But I don't want to do what it takes to get there. I just want to take a pill. Check out that reflection in the mirror. I know you guys do that. I don't want to do what it takes to get there. You know why? Because I love chicharrones. It takes hard work to be jacked up like that. I don't have the time for it. It's like I've always wanted to play the piano. Anybody ever want to play an instrument? I love hearing someone play the piano. Every time I hear someone playing the piano, I wish I could play. What I'm not willing to do is practice. To sit at a piano, learn music, play the scales. I just want to play. Right? That's what we want to do. We just want to play. I don't want to do the work it takes. That's the same thing in godliness. There's no shortcuts. You got to put in the time. This passage tells us of 4 ways that we can run with endurance. It tells us this race is set before us, requires faith, that's trust, endurance, that you can continue on, commitment to it. and discipline in order to live this way. We discipline ourselves, right? When we have to get up in the work, to go to work in the morning, it's a discipline. If not, what happens? Why doesn't my lights turn on? Well, you didn't pay the bill. You know what I mean? There's a discipline that you and I, if we make it an important thing, we'll do it. But there's no shortcuts. But the only way to do this is by practicing or exercising them. We become better at something because we do it over and over and over and over. That's how we become better. I know some of you are excellent in the fields that you do. I know some of you guys are excellent hunters and fishermen because you didn't just start off that way. You learned along the way, didn't you? Of what to do and what not to do. Paul, talking to the Corinthian church in chapter 9, verses 25 through 27 tell us this. Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away. But you and I, we do it for an eternal prize. That's heaven. So I run with purpose in every step. I'm not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. So he ran with purpose. He did this every single day. He trained in his body. It was like muscle memory. It comes naturally. And then he goes on to say, otherwise, I fear after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. Is he showing something? Is he preaching? Practicing what he's preaching? There was a guy one time that I knew, a friend of mine. And he came to me with his weight loss product. Oh, you know, I'm a sucker for that. I just want a pill. But he came to me and he says, this is a great shake and you just take that. And I said, so when are you going to start taking it? And he said, well, I've been on it for 3 months. And I'm like, I don't want to buy any. It's not working. I'm sorry. I wanted some evidence, you know. I'm sorry, but that's, you see that? It's like, I don't want to be disqualified. I'm telling you this thing is supposed to make you slim. And I'm like, I don't know. I want to be saying that God has changed you. You were once blind and now you can see. That's what I want for each one of us. This race that is set before us, we didn't select the course. God did. And he knew exactly what we needed to finish this course. It doesn't matter what trials, tribulations, what you're going through right now, he'll give you the strength to carry on. People have done it before you and they give us the evidence that it can be done. We each have to run our own race, but we must stay the course. This is not for sprinters. This is for long race runners. This walk with Christ. How do we do this? He says in verse 2, looking to Jesus, the founder and the perfecter of our faith. He's the one that starts to perfect it. We don't. We just go along in this race. For who the joy was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. What this is doing is telling us to shift our focus off of one thing to another, which is Christ. It's not good to look back. It's good to look forward. We have examples of scriptures of those that look back. Look at Lot's wife. She was looking back to something that she was so enthused with was the world. He told her not to look back. And then she turned to salt, you remember? Also in Luke 9:62, it says, but Jesus told him, anyone who puts his hand to the plow and then looks back is not fit for the kingdom of God. Keep our eyes focused on him. Don't be looking back at other things. Get distracted. If you remember the famous story of Peter in the boat, he stepped out of the boat. You guys remember that? There's pictures. There's all kinds of different things. When he had his eyes focused on Jesus, he got out and he also started walking on water. That's amazing. But what happens? He says he saw the crashing waves. He heard the wind. He heard all this stuff, and he got distracted by those things. And what happened? He began to sink. I know what it is to take my eyes off the Lord and begin to sink. And it's an ugly thing. We need to keep our eyes focused on Jesus. Then we don't sink. You know, in my profession, I was a contractor, as many of you know. At one point, I used to build homes. And sometimes I'd come home, and some of you guys in construction come home with this big old ball of tape on your finger. Construction tape. So it wasn't the Band-Aid, it was a duct tape, something. You know, you remember those times. But Sam said, what happened? You got distracted and kept you got distracted and you weren't keeping your eye on the nail. And I said, I was, but it was the wrong nail. You know what I mean? I hit this nail. It's whatever we keep our eyes focused on. If you play golf, what's the most important thing? Keep your eye on the ball. You play baseball, keep your eye on the ball. We got to keep our eyes on Christ. Other things may harm us. Sometimes things are attractive to us, right? And they get our attention and they can harm us. I have a little clip for you. And if you guys can remember this is one of my favorite movies. It's out of Bug's Life. I'm going to share this little thing from you.
No! Harry, no! Don't look at the light!
I can't help it. It's so beautiful.
And se acabó.
Try not to look
That's
at the
it.
country bug.
We what happens is we focus on something. It's the light, it's so beautiful. But then that's what happens. Have you ever been there? Those that drink and drive, it only takes one time. There's many things that can end as just one time. Can end our life and make us regret it for the rest of our life. It's looking to Jesus, who's the goal of the journey, and he's our companion along the way. He never leaves us or forsakes us, he said. He's there with us. This is the only way this race can be won, is through him. It's looking to him that he's the originator of the faith, and he's going to perfect it and finish that if we allow him. When we're running long ways, it's hard sometimes because we get distracted. Whether in bad marriage, bad jobs, we get discouraged in this lifetime, I think. There's sometimes we get discouraged with the things that we deal with. And sometimes we don't even see the finish line. We need to keep our eyes on the road ahead. When we start to get discouraged, start to look elsewhere, we slow down. That's like when we're running a race and we're looking to the side, we're not paying attention. We start to slow down. We start to struggle. We can't give up. You know, as I mentioned many times in Psalm 23, he said, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, thou art with me, right? That's what he says. Sometimes we're in the valleys of the shadow of death. It feels like everything is crumbling in on us, but we're just merely in the shadow. What's on the other side of the shadow? The light. We just need to make it past that little portion of our lives to the light. Many of us are stuck in the darkness sometimes, and we can't get to the light. We can rely on others to help us through that, relying even on Jesus Christ and saying, help me to get to that point. Help me to see so I'm not in this darkness no more. Even if we look at the attitude of Jesus when he faced the cross, it was for joy. Looking beyond his sufferings to the joy to come. Paul had it right in saying in Romans 8:18, he says this, for I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us. There's going to be better days when we get to see Jesus Christ. but we must stay the course. You know, sometimes when I'm hunting, somebody will pin drop me. There's this thing called Onyx maps, and they'll pin drop me and say, hey, we're over here. Why don't you make it to me there? And I'm looking at the terrain, and I'm now looking at the mountain. I'm like, I want to go to the flatland. Let me go get the truck, and I'll drive around to you. But I don't want to take the work to get to it. But that's where I need to go. Sometimes we don't want to do it. Verse 3, he tells us, consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. So he's went before us facing these different things. He faced different people. You remember the Pharisees, the Herodians. He faced all these people, even his friend betraying him, Satan tempting him. He got to see a lot of different things, as you and I have seen. I don't know about you, but this last year seemed to wear me out. There was a lot of stuff that went on in my life that was just like tough, and I'm glad that I'm past those. But as I did and you did this last year, we need to keep our eyes focused on the prize. What's to come? It's almost here, I believe. We can't back down. You know that soul work is slow work. And there's no shortcuts. Soul work is slow work. There's no shortcuts to it. I wish we could just take a pill. Hey, this Christianity, I'm just going to watch a YouTube video on how to do it. No, you have to do the work. You can't have salvation without suffering. You can't have Easter without Good Friday. You can't have discipleship without discipline. Again, there's no shortcuts to it. I don't know about you, but some of our races are straight, some are twisty, windy, uphill, downhill. They're all different, but each one of us can finish a race before us because we have examples. We have who Christ went before us. He says that you can do it. He's our encourager. But it'll be worth it. So lastly, just to put it plainly, how Jesus is asking us to live this year. How are we to get spiritually fit this year? These three things. Run as free as you can with no extra weight. You got to determine what that weight is that's slowing you down. Secondly is be focused as you can. Don't just get distracted by the things of this life. This life can suck at times. I'm going to say it that way. It can be terrible, difficult, and hard. But don't let it distract you and derail you. Thirdly, run this race as faithfully as you can, remembering it can be done. There's evidence that can be done. Many of you are evidence of where you used to be. And God has delivered you. You can do it. As believers, when we start to lose sight of God, His word, His plan for our lives, it can lead us in the wrong direction. And towards sin, missed opportunities, we miss blessings, and then we endure discipline because He wants us back. Even when we lose sight of God, it causes us to fear, to become angry, to worry. We become frustrated, and we doubt a lot. And those are what the enemy wants us to have, is fear, anger, worry, frustration, and doubt. I pray that now in 2023, we keep looking unto Jesus, the founder, the perfecter of our faith, that He gives us the strength to carry on. Do you need that extra boost this day? I do. I hope that this year was better than last year. And I hope that God strengthens me even more. It helps me to focus on Him. That my life is not in shambles and I'm chasing my tail. I'm done with that.
Above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man. You were here before the world began. Above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth, there's no way to measure up your worth. Crucified, laid behind the stone, you live to die, rejected and alone like a rose, trampled on the ground. You took the fall, you thought of me above all, above all powers, above all kings, above all nature and all created things, above all wisdom and all the ways of man. You were here before the world began. Above all kingdoms, above all thrones, above all wonders the world has ever known, above all wealth and treasures of the earth, there's no way to measure up your worth. Crucified, laid behind the stone, you live to die, rejected and alone like a rose, trampled on the ground. You took the fall, thought of me above all, like a rose, trampled on the ground. You took the fall, thought of me above all.
He became sin, who knew no sin, that we might become his righteousness. He humbled himself and carried the cross. Love so amazing, love so amazing. Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Messiah, Lord of Jesus Messiah, name above all names, blessed Redeemer, Emmanuel, the rescue for sinners, the ransom from heaven, Jesus Messiah, Lord of all. Jesus Messiah.